UNICEF saying more than 1 million children have fled Ukraine in search of safety and protection. That's one child becoming a refugee every second since the invasion first began. The majority of the refugees are going into Poland. That's where France 24's Emmanuel Chaze is now, just over the border from Ukraine. Emmanuel, what's the situation like where you are now?
Well, I'm here in Trebene. It's a checkpoint that I first checked roughly two weeks ago, over 2 weeks ago, and there was absolutely nothing here. There were just people arriving with their trolleys, their backpacks, and Polish people or Ukrainians living in Poland picking up their relatives from the border. And as you can see behind me, there is humanitarian aid being put in place because simply the amount of people coming every day, every night doesn't stop. We're talking here at this particular checkpoint about hundreds of people arriving daily. Numbers vary depending on the checkpoints. Yesterday I was in Medica, I was in Przemysl, where you have 20,000 people arriving every day. I also went to Bodomierz, which is also at the border, which also sees hundreds of people arriving daily. And what we witness, of course you've mentioned it, is that the vast majority of those refugees are women, are children. There's also a lot of elderly people, people with disabilities that we perhaps hadn't seen at the very beginning of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, where, in the aftermath of February 24th, we saw mostly people who had the means to flee crossing the border, people with cars, people who could afford to pass the border. Now, what we're seeing are refugees who have lost everything, refugees who have experienced bombings of their cities, who have seen atrocities perpetrated in their cities. So people are much more traumatized, and children keep on arriving. There's a lot of children here, a lot of women, a lot of vulnerable people who keep crossing the border every day.
Emmanuel, the situation in Poland obviously overwhelming. How is the government holding up? How is the infrastructure in Poland holding up to welcome all of these people that keep pouring over the border?
It's definitely stretched to its limits. When I was driving to come over here, I was driving along the border. Every warehouse is requisitions to be transformed into an emergency center. You can see here very strong police presence, soldier presence, firefighter presence, and also a lot of NGOs, both Polish and also international NGOs, who came here to try and help. And in the meantime, the government has unblocked a financial aid last Thursday of 1.6 billion euros to try and respond to the immediate aftermath of this humanitarian crisis. But there's a lot of interrogations as to whether or not it will be enough. There's a huge wave of solidarity. There's a lot of Polish people who opened up their homes. But of course, there's interrogations as to how long will Poland be able to sustain, to support this humanitarian effort. With also the mayor of Warsaw warning the international community that his country needs help, and not least his city. Warsaw is now home to more than 10% of those 1.7 million Ukrainians who fled Ukraine and took shelter here in Poland.
Emmanuel, thank you so much for that. That's Emmanuel Chaze there reporting from that refugee checkpoint in Poland, just over the border from Ukraine.